Hello everyone and welcome back to another session of Elden Ring PvP and another weapon showcase. Today we're taking a look at Ordovis' Greatsword. This is a weapon that you get from killing Ordovis when you fight him in the Ariza Hero's Grave, which is located near the capital. I'll have an image on screen showing the location. This weapon is quite fun to use. There's nothing terribly unique with it as far as the moveset is concerned. The only unique thing about it is the Ash being Ordovis' Vortex. It's a very difficult Ash to hit with, but if you do manage it, it's quite satisfying and deals a fair amount of damage. So, enough of that, let's go ahead and get started with the basics. The weapon requires 25 strength, 13 dexterity, and 15 faith to wield, and it weighs 12 units. It does have Ordovis' Vortex as its skill, as I said, and you are unable to change that because this is a somber weapon. At plus 10, it has a physical base damage of 262, a holy base damage of 169, an A scaling in strength, E in dexterity, and C in faith. This weapon, as I said, is pretty fun to use. It's a relatively enjoyable one with a very basic Greatsword moveset, but with that basic Greatsword moveset, it's a very reliable one with a lot of good things going on with it. With the moveset, your one-handed R1s are wide slashes, your two-handed R2s are also a wide slash. Your backstep R1 when both one-handed and two-handed is a phenomenal attack that I find myself doing more often than I should, so I've been trying to not do it so frequently, but it's a very fun, satisfying attack to do. It, when one-handed, does a little spinning slash, and when two-handed, you rush towards your opponent quite quickly with a horizontal slash. So with that, it's quite a valuable attack to have, and quite fun, especially if you do a ravioli step towards your opponent to initiate that backstepping R1. So that's something to keep in mind. It's nice. Other attacks with this weapon that are quite good would be the running R2 attack, both one-handed and two-handed. I personally try to two-hand this weapon as often as I can, given its strength scaling, and with that strength scaling, the fact that it of course does benefit from being two-handed because of that scaling. So, again, you'll get a little bit extra damage out of it, and all the damage, it helps, you know? It's good to have, so it is what it is. Pros of the weapon outside of the moveset, though, of course the biggest pro I would say would be the damage. With this weapon, if you are properly spec'd for it, you can exceed 800 for your attack rating. Of course, attack rating isn't the only thing that matters when thinking about damage. The other thing that matters would be the motion values. However, there is nothing unique with the motion values on this weapon. It's pretty standard, so we can take the attack rating at face value, so to speak. Now, outside of the damage and outside of the moveset, it does have an okay amount of hyper armor on the weapon. It's not terribly great, it's not terribly bad, it's kind of middle of the road as far as hyper armor is concerned. So it'll do well enough in most situations. I wouldn't trade with anything of equal size or larger. Let's phrase it like that. Straight swords, spears, katanas, curved swords, trade with them for a hit, that's fair game. Anything bigger than those, just don't do it. So, aside from all the pros, I would say that the cons of the weapon, it's kind of boring, to be honest. The only unique thing about it is the skill, and with that skill, it's kind of hard to hit. Now, with the Vortex, there are a couple of things I do want to go over with it, but I'll save that for a minute here. I just want to go over one other con of the weapon, and that would be the, aside from the lack of unique moveset, the other con of the weapon is, I guess we can say that split damage is bad. It's something worth mentioning, but because the attack rating is so high, I find that it barely matters. I just know that some people will be upset if I don't mention it, so this is for you. It has split damage. Now, as far as the skill of the weapon, Ordovis' Vortex is actually quite neat. When you use the skill, it spins the sword and then slams it down. That much is pretty clear. What some people may not know is that the longer you hold that spin, the more shockwaves it will put off when it hits the ground. With that, people generally seem to not expect it. So, what I've noticed and what I've had good luck with is fully charging the attack, And people, when you slam the sword into the ground, expect the attack to be over. But those shockwaves, they linger. So they'll run in on the attack, and then they'll get hit by the shockwaves. With those shockwaves, if you time it well, and if you are able to react to your opponent being stunned in time, you can actually follow up them being stunned from the shockwave with an R1 to sneak in even more damage. So that's a good strategy with this weapon. Aside from that, though, the skill itself, of course, can be buffed with the Shard of Alexander, but because it is able to be charged, it also will work with the Godfrey icon. So that's another thing to give you a little bit of an edge with this weapon. One thing that I have not been able to confirm is if it has a larger area of effect if you put on the Arrow's Reach talisman, because that will boost the range of spells, but I have not been able to confirm if it boosts the range of Ashes of War that have a magical nature. I haven't bothered testing it yet. It's something I've been meaning to, so if any of you guys know that offhand, I would appreciate it if you did let me know in the comments. Does it have that benefit? Because it would be pretty neat if it did. That all said, there is one fight left after this one, and I don't really have anything else to say about the weapon. So if you've enjoyed this video, or found it helpful in any way, then please do all the YouTube things for me. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Tell me about your experience with this weapon, and if you haven't used it, give this thing a shot. It's a very fun weapon to use, and I would recommend it. So, take from that what you will. Either way, thank you all again for stopping by, and I'll see you all next time.